chance to say yes.
Got it.
Record with a view of me. Oops. And could I please ask you to mute your mics while I'm talking? And we'll have time for questions or comments or anything. But the way I usually do these is I talk for about, I like to try and say it's 20 minutes, but sometimes it ends up being half an hour. And then I'll happy to take questions or make it into more of a discussion eventually. So look, tonight we're going to be talking about the power of emotions, your inner guidance system. And I think that to a degree, we all know that our emotions help us to do that. So the first thing I wanted to ask you tonight is, how are you feeling? Can you just type one word you're feeling? How are you feeling? Type it in the chat box. Oh, we've got two Claires. Isn't that exciting? Okay. So what feeling are you feeling, Kathy? Pensive, Rupa. Interesting. So pensive is kind of quite a calm emotion. Are you feeling pensive, sad, pensive, frustrated, pensive, calm, pensive, what? Anyone else want to type something in? Calm, light. Nice. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Thoughtful. Yep. Overwhelmed. That's frustrated. Okay. Now it's coming out. That's great. So, the question is, did you have to think about that? And how are you really feeling? And how many times a day do you actually check in with your feelings? So emotions are a really important guidance system. When we feel good, we wish the feelings would last forever, don't we? And then when they feel uncomfortable, we try and wish them away. But the reality is our emotions are a guidance system. They tell us if we are on track or off track. And they can tell us whether we have something unresolved in the depths of our lives. And in a way, that's what I was talking to Jackie about a few minutes ago, this idea that you might make mistakes. We were talking specifically about dating, and you might make mistakes if you go out again, and it might bring up feelings because it's a new thing and it can be a little bit scary. But the question is, what are those emotions telling us? So the first thing I want to say is that feelings themselves are neither good nor bad. And this is a really important point. It's not the feelings, it's the judgment or the narrative that we overlay on the feelings. So feelings just are. They just are. We have feelings from moment to moment. And if you begin this habit of checking in with yourself, which is something I actually learned many years ago on an anger management course, I had decided, because I had such a tempestuous relationship with my ex-husband, I had decided to go on an anger management course. I kind of knew that he probably wasn't going to do that. So I'm a great believer in taking responsibility. And one of the things we learned was to check in on our emotions. I'm pleased to say I don't really present as a very angry person anymore. And I don't even think I was then. Anyway, we digress. I digress. So feelings are neither good nor bad, they just are. And so this labeling them with a story, this overlay, is what creates the problem and the drama. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about two things. One is how you can use your feelings to guide you. And another, if we have time, we'll talk about how you can change your state. And I'm going to go into that in more detail next week. And what I mean by state is how you can change your general emotional feeling, okay? So as I said, when we're happy, there's a feeling that all is well. And yet we know that can't last forever. And we still carry on in the delusion of thinking it will, but life is not like that. We are a complex mix of all the things we've been through in our individual lives, the joy, the grief, the calm, the tempestuous, the passion, the lethargy. The emotions themselves are here to guide us. And I'm going to say it again, it's the overlay of the story that's the issue. So I'll give you a really simple example. I meet a guy, I start to like him, I start to build a relationship, I start to project right into the future before I even know this person. what is he like? What is he not like? Is he going to be messy? Is he going to be tidy? Are we going to live together? You know, all this blah, 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 before I even know him. And suddenly the fear, the doubt, the anxiety comes up. Now you could ask yourself, is it because he's the wrong guy? Maybe. Is it because I'm insecure? Maybe. Is it because I'm going to screw it up? Maybe. Is it because I'll never have the relationship I want? Maybe. Can you see how the story can escalate just from a simple, uncomfortable feeling? Suddenly you've got a huge drama laid out before you. And the bottom line is, I'll never have the relationship I want. This is not just for relationships, it's also for work. What's really happening is that my emotions are telling me there's something unsettled in me, that there's an area where there's a lack of confidence, not just in myself, but in the idea that everything is working exactly as it needs to for me to grow into the best version of myself. And when you learn to adopt that lens, that we live in a friendly universe, as my mentor, Peter Sage, says, when we begin to adopt that lens, things start to transform very quickly. Now, I know that you all know that you can't just overcome an emotion just like that. But what you can do is transform them quicker and quicker by developing a level of awareness that enables you to see what's happening in the moment. So this is the same, whether it's with your job or your business. You know, when will I have this relationship or that business or that shiny object over there, over there, over there, over there? It's always outside and over there. But the thing is, the mind, the ego part of the mind, starts to deliver us stories about what could, might, should, will happen, instead of just being where we are. So what the feelings are really showing me is that I need to do the work. I need to build my confidence in myself, in life itself. So one of the things I learned about, funnily enough, in the last few days, is that there's this fundamental law in operation in the universe. It's called the law of balance and harmony. And it was on a course about quantum alignment with Peter Sage, whose course I'm going to be delivering in about 3 weeks' time. And that was about something we call lowering the importance. Lowering the importance. And what he said is that when we place too much importance on something, obstacles are going to come up. This is not to say we shouldn't set priorities. It's not to say we shouldn't have a vision. But when we get too invested, too tangled up in the emotion, things start to happen, things start to appear, which is to address the balance. So the way he described it is, if you're standing up and you're off balance and you start to fall over one way, you're going to put out your arm to balance you the other way. And he gave tons of examples of how this operates in life. So what's really happening when you feel these emotions, it's important to drill down into that. Usually we find that we have a story, and it's usually a very old story or old wounds. So, you know, when you go through something difficult, like a relationship that didn't work out or a job that didn't work out, it can be an unhappy story, right? But what would happen if you sat with the feeling? Because here's the thing, the tendency is to push the feeling down, push it away. The first thought that comes into your mind when you have a yucky feeling is this: I don't want this feeling. I don't want this feeling. I don't want this feeling. Instead of, how can I redirect my attention? Or how can I sit with the feeling until it moves through me? How can I allow the feeling? Because it's this just come into my mind. When you think there's a monster under the bed, and you look under the bed and the monster is not really a monster, it's a puppy. You know, it's allowing feelings to come up. So really what these feelings are doing is allowing us to build the inner core of my life. So it's being about being fully engaged with the moment, fully present, wholly in love with me. And that's what will ultimately sustain me. I'm using myself as an example, but I encourage you to think in the same way. So when you are in love with life, when you're in flow, when you're experiencing life as something beautiful and worthy of gratitude, the rewards that you get are just the icing on the cake. But you are the cake. The fact that you're alive is the cake. When you're in alignment, when you get into flow. And here's the thing, we've all experienced trauma of one form or another, and we can spend years just putting on our armor, just keep layering up the armor, becoming impenetrable. We muscle up, we hide ourselves with others, from others. I actually remember when my first son was born, I used to go to parenting groups, and I'm quite an emotional person. And I was feeling pretty down, and I just would never let the other mothers in the group know how I was feeling. I just found it shameful to have those feelings. So Brené Brown has something really interesting to say about that. She says, when we hit midlife, we realize that the clock is ticking and we have a choice. We can live a half life, or play full out. For those of you who don't know who Brené Brown is, she's a really well-known researcher on shame and vulnerability. So what does that mean, living a half life or playing full out? Well, it's whatever it means to you, but the clock is ticking. And she says, I love this phrase, we need to replace our armor. Like, I don't want that feeling, I'm going to push it out of the way. We need to replace our armor with curiosity. Curiosity is the superpower for the second half of our lives, because it keeps us learning, it keeps us asking questions, and it increases our self-awareness. So what if every time you had a feeling, you decided to be curious about it, be curious about what's causing it? So instead of acting out, getting drunk, numbing with television, do you have the ability to sit with the feeling, to breathe into it, or even just cry? The level of connection to yourself that you will feel is immense and powerful. It's powerful. Would you like to step into that powerful version of yourself? And I really can say this because I am not the same person I was 7 years ago when I got divorced. And this is how I live. You know, I really make every effort to face what I'm going through and transform it. So to alchemize it, to turn poison into medicine, to turn the really tough stuff into gold. So I'm not talking about being in a victim state. I'm not talking about saying, poor me. I'm talking about acknowledging your feelings, because emotions are your inner compass, right? Someone's just coming in the room, sorry. Emotions are your inner compass. They tell us whether we're on track. They tell us where we need to explore something on a deeper level, right? So take, for example, your work or your business. Is it lighting you up, or is it bringing you down? What choices can you make to improve it? What are those emotions telling you? What about the argument you have with your boss? How's that making you feel? How can you transmit those? How can you communicate those feelings in a way where you take full responsibility? Because you couldn't be making up a narrative. How can you lift your emotional state? And here's the thing, is it really something that's going on outside of you, or is it something you need to look inward to address? I would suggest to you it's always the latter, that inner world precedes outer world. So when we apply the idea of curiosity, we can inhabit the emotion rather than pushing it away. Pushing it away doesn't work, because I promise you, if you push it down, it will grow. That's all that will happen, is it will grow. So I do want to clarify again, there's a difference between following your inner guidance and getting stuck in a narrative, getting stuck in a story, trying to figure it out. That's what the ego wants to do. The ego wants to figure it out, create the story, create the narrative. So, okay, for example, your boss doesn't think you're good enough. The narrative then becomes, why doesn't she like me? What's wrong with me? What have I done wrong? Will anyone ever love me? Why do I keep making the wrong choices? The feeling then goes in a downward spiral. And, you know, it's natural, but at some point if we want an enriched life, we have to change our habitual way of thinking. So what about trying this? She didn't respond to me the way I expected her to. I feel hurt. What is the true cause of this hurt inside me? Is it really her? Or did I give her power over me? Do I even know her? Probably not. I wonder what's going on for her. Is she responsible for my happiness? Definitely not. We all do this, you know, whether we do it in a relationship with a boss or whether it's in romantic love. And there's no doubt that there's pain in these situations. And there's no doubt that when you want to go deeper, whether it's with a colleague or within a romantic situation, it's challenging. It's one of the most challenging things you can do, because you have no control over what the other person's going to do. You have no control. And the minute you try and manipulate the situation, you are totally onto a losing wicket. I know, because I've done it. I still do it from time to time. So we have no control over what the person will do, despite our attempts at manipulation. So name the feeling. I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling anxious. Does that mean there's something wrong with you? No, it means you're human. It takes courage to allow feelings, but it also creates immense, immense power. So I urge you not to fight the feeling as much as redirect your thoughts. There's a difference between redirecting your thoughts. Sorry, I don't know what's happening to me tonight. I'm blaming the feeling. So my experience is, without depth of feeling, you're living a half life. The lessons will still come up. And, you know, as you clam up in the shell of fear, in the shell of lack of communication with yourself first, and then with others where necessary, your life shrinks. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Whereas owning the feelings allows you to expand. And this is your choice. So if I ask you again, how are you feeling right now? It's a question you might want to ask yourself regularly. And when you're feeling a challenging emotion, you might want to observe that someone's pushed your buttons, right? Or that it's a trigger. And that button is linked to a story. It's linked to a story. And at the root of that story will be, if you peel it back, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy. So I'm going to use another romantic one, because I think they're the toughest ones. Say someone asks you out, they're super smart, super funny, super nice, flirty, you start falling, and suddenly it becomes a hellish roller coaster of, when are they going to call? What's going on? What are they thinking? Probably nothing. And here's the crucial mistake. You did not for 1 minute, did you stop and ask yourself, do I know this person? Are they showing up for me? What do I need to know about this person before committing myself? So the starting emotion is something we call rapture. And the flip side of rapture is hell. The hell of, does he like me? Is he going to call? Why is he doing this? Blah, blah, blah. Instead, you could just be checking in with your emotions. How am I feeling? Does that feel good? What's going on for me? What's really kicking off for me? So the hellish state is just telling you you're way off track. You're out of balance. You're violating the law of balance and harmony. You're placing too much importance on what's going on, way too much importance. So this idea of lowering the importance is super, super important. You're not tending to yourself. You're falling for a story. The rapture story is, he's my soulmate. The hell story is, I'm unlovable. So if you can use these emotions to constructively see where you need to go next, it's great. Oh, that's an indicator flag. What's going on for me there? Curiosity. Does this make sense? Let me know if this makes sense. Type yes in the chat box. So these feelings are really not about the person, the job, your boss, your mother, your kids. It's likely to be about a wounded child inside, or a victim mentality, or self-sabotage. And that's where the work needs to happen, because you're superimposing a bunch of stuff on the situation, a story. Your emotions are showing you that although you think the cards are in someone else's hand, they really aren't. They really aren't. Do you really want that thing that's not right for you? The job, the relationship, the situation? Is that what you want? The thing that's not right for you? The thing that's not going to energize you? And conversely, you'll have areas of your life where you feel alive, inspired, energized. When you go for a job interview, for example, are you looking at the paycheck or the excitement of the new job? What kind of people would you like to be around? What kind of friends would you like to have? What kind of peer group would you like to have? This is really, really, really important. Who are you spending your time with? Who are you investing your energy with? People who are energy vampires, who suck the life out of you, or people who lift you up and you have something to contribute to each other? Other questions, do you prefer being in the office or working from home? Do you prefer taking charge or being given instructions? We're all different, but there will be some little seed of an idea that you've locked away. And when you think of it, it makes you super excited. So I'm encouraging you to take that little seed, plant it, nurture it, and grow it. What's stopping you from following those dreams? Writing that book, leaving that job to start your own company, learning that instrument, learning a new language. What sad bullshit excuses are getting in your way? What excuses are getting in your way? Even if you spend 10 minutes following something that ignites your joy, you'll be moving your life in the right direction. So I've always claimed to be fortunate, but my life has actually been a series of, I'm going to say, inspired choices. And that's the story I'm overlaying on it now, right? I chose to pursue music when it was totally against the cultural grain of my family. They just wanted me to be a teacher because I loved singing and writing. I chose to retrain to work with deaf people because I was intrigued by the language. I chose to build a network marketing business because I love the people and the personal development. Then I transitioned. I chose to become a coach because it lights me up. I chose to do these talks for free because I love it. And yes, it is business, but I also love it. And I can tell you, I had to overcome my fear of possible failure every time, but I follow my bliss. So this is what I mean when I say it's your inner guidance system. Your emotional state is meant to guide you and direct your choices and decisions. That's why it's there. Your emotions are telling you if you're on or off track, if you're in harmony with life or if you're not. So if something makes you feel alive, inspired, and energized, do it. Go for it. Boldly throw yourself into the idea. You're just going to have so much fun. And if your emotions are saying, I'm afraid, I'm stressed, I'm worried, I'm ashamed, pause and try to understand what the emotion is telling you. Now, that emotion isn't necessarily a no. I'm afraid could just be like, ooh, this is exciting. So really get to the bottom of that. When you don't listen to your emotions, it's a problem. It's like you're stunting your own growth. Your emotions are directing you to your vision. So also when you hit obstacles, know that you're changing something. Celebrate, get out the champagne. It's your emotions, not your vision, which are directing you in the day-to-day flow towards what you want. Imagine it. You do something that excites you and suddenly you're pulled along by the current, the positive current of your deepest desires and potential. An hour can go by in a minute, can't it? And you'll get to where you want to go much, much more quickly when you listen to your emotions. This is what we call emotional intelligence. So, for example, I'm not going to work because I'm stressed. I'm not going to produce my best work. Maybe the stress is telling you to take a break so that you can get back on and do your best work. And this is one of the things I work on with my clients. The result of ignoring emotional signals, negative signals, sickness, health issues, breakdowns, autoimmune disease, goes on and on and on. It shows you're not listening to your emotional guidance system. So, emotions equal the connection to the part of you that knows what's healthy. They're physical, aren't they? You can feel them in your body. They're the connections to your inner guidance system. They are the means by which you can make healthy choices. The key, and I'm going to end on this probably, is to understand your emotions, how to work with them, how to use them to make constructive choices, how they can empower you, and how you can use them to your advantage. Because when you're in a good state, good stuff comes back. We call this, you've heard it before, the law of attraction, getting into a higher vibration. So when you're in that higher vibration, you attract great things. It's really interesting. Today, I was offered an opportunity. As I said, I'm going to be running one of Peter Sage's groups. It's called the Elite Mentorship Forum. And my first reaction was fear. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. What's that about? Well, that was just my inner limitations kicking off. So you keep peeling it back. You peel the onion. Why are you afraid of that? What could go wrong? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You fall flat on your face. What's the worst thing that's going to happen if you guys hate this presentation? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Do you think that thought doesn't cross my mind? Because it does. What if nobody gets anything out of this? What if I'm wasting my time? But does that matter? Because I know that doing this lights me up. So it's a constant process of transformation. Is it transformation of our emotions? So I'm going to end it there. I really want to highlight that thing that Brené Brown said about curiosity. I'd love to take questions. I was going to do a little meditation, but I think I'm going to save that for next week, where I'm going to talk about 10 ways to light up your life and how to change your state and how to move from the yucky emotions to transform them into something that's really empowering. As I'm speaking to you, what I'm realizing is that the gist of this, I've called it the power of emotions, but it's really about empowerment by using our emotions to guide us. It's about you empowering yourself to make healthy choices. So I hope you guys find that helpful. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording so that if anybody wants to comment, ask questions, etc., you can, because I'd love that. So here we